Hey guys, thanks for tuning in today. I wanted to go over a video and kind of react to it. This is going to be a political video. Been a lot of talk about Trump is a threat to democracy and we have to save our democracy and democracy. And Winston Churchill said that democracy is the worst form of government ever tried amongst all others. But I do believe in my heart that the republic is the best form of government possible. And we pledge our allegiance to the flag and to the republic for which it stands. And that's very intentional. But I think a lot of people do not know about this. So I think this video that I'm about to show right now should be one of the top 10 videos that all Americans in the world should watch. I'm going to title that Every American Should Understand This About Americanism. So let's just jump into it. Let them talk, but they'll explain it. I'll pause it a couple times, give what I'm thinking some light, but here we go.
When Benjamin Franklin exited the Constitutional Convention, he was asked by a woman, "Sir, what have you given us?" His immediate response was, "A republic, ma'am, if you can keep it." Yet most Americans today have been persuaded that...
I just want to cut right there. If you can keep it. I think that's the most important thing, because as they're saying on the news, the democracy, we're losing our democracy. And this is what they mean, if you can keep it. But you'll find out here that we don't want a democracy. We've never wanted a democracy. And we'll get more into it here. But if you can keep it, keep that in mind. That's the problem with government, is that every system slips away from a republic. Well, ones that are set up as a republic slip away from a republic.
The nation's governmental system is a democracy and not a republic. The difference between these two is essential in understanding Americanism and the American system.
Essential.
Before we discuss political systems, however, it's helpful to address the confusion that has been spread about the political spectrum. Many have been led to believe that the political spectrum places groups such as communists on the far left, fascists or dictators on the far right, and political moderates or centrists in the middle.
And this is especially important in today's climate, too, because you have the liberals, or the communists over there, and you have the fascists over here on the right. Under me, it says fascist, just so you know. And this is the spectrum that they say, are you left wing or right wing? And this is what they're talking about. Even me, I know this stuff, and I'm still subject to these things. Like after the Democrats lost, I said, well, they can't go any more left. You can't go any more liberal. You can't get any more, whatever the liberal ideology is, this virtue signaling, woke culture of all inclusiveness. You can't go farther that way. It's washed up. You have to come more to the center to get people from the right to join back to the left, right? So I still fall for this too, but I think it's really interesting to note that this is the political spectrum that they've been teaching us for years.
In the middle. However, a more accurate political spectrum will show government having zero power on the far right to having 100% power on the far left. At the extreme right, there is no government. The extreme left features total government under such labels as communism, socialism, Nazism, fascism, princes, potentates, dictators, kings, any form of total government. Those who
also democracy
claim that Nazis and fascists are right-wing never define their terms. This amounts to spreading confusion. Toward the middle of the political spectrum can be found the type of government limited to its proper role of protecting the rights of the people. That's where the Constitution of the United States is. Those who advocate such a form of government are really constitutional moderates. So let's analyze the basic forms of government. They are monarchy or dictatorship ruled by one, oligarchy ruled by a few, democracy ruled by a majority, republic ruled by law, and anarchy, which is ruled by no one. In discussing these five, we'll see that they can be narrowed down to even fewer.
And I'm curious, right here, he goes over it. Monarchy, oligarchy, democracy, republic, and anarchy. I wonder, what are your initial thoughts of those systems of government? Because most people believe that there's basically what we have now, and communism or socialism, and then there's fascism. Have you heard the term oligarchy before? When people say they control the world and they can't define that ever, they say it's these families or it's this or that or the Illuminati. I don't want to say it on YouTube, but I think And I call it, appropriately, the oligarchy. And we'll find out why here.
Looking first at monarchy or dictatorship, this form of government doesn't really exist in the practical sense. It's always a group that puts one of its members up front. A king has his council of nobles or earls, and every dictator has his bureaucrats or commissars, the men behind the scenes. This isn't ruled by one, even though one person may be the visible leader. It's ruled by a group. So let's eliminate monarchy, dictatorship, because it never truly exists. Oligarchy, which is ruled by a group, is the most common form of government in all history. And it is the most common form of government today. Most of the nations of the world are ruled by a powerful few, and therefore oligarchy remains. At the other end,
which is my most interesting form of government is oligarchy, because that's what's controlling it. A small group of people, known or unknown, who actually do put up a front man. This is why we replace a president every 4 to 8 years to blame the president for the problems, but the system always remains the same, because the people who are unelected, they're pretty smart. They sit behind the scenes and make decisions on behalf of themselves, not you. That would be what you think a democracy is. But so anyways, we've already lost our democracy is what I'm trying to get to. But check this out.
Find anarchy, which means without government. Some people have looked over history and found that many of its worst crimes were committed by governments. So they decided that having no government might be a good idea. But this is a mistake, because as the ancient Greeks stated, without law there can be no freedom. Our founding fathers agreed.
That's so powerful.
And held that some amount of government is a necessary force in any civilized, orderly society.
And I have some friends that would argue with me that you're a statist if you want government to have law. But it is very true. Like, he's going to get into a couple examples right now where law and order, I also believe that, which isn't discussing this at all, but you can't legislate away crime. I don't think we can legislate away crime. Murder is already illegal. It happens every single day. Some people get the death sentence for it, and they'll still do it. It's not. There's no amount of laws that can stop crime from happening. That you can deter some, but generally speaking, criminals don't follow laws. It's kind of the definition of criminal. So you can make every single thing in the world illegal, and then every single thing will just become criminal, right? It's not like it's going to stop. And this is my problem with laws. But there is a protection of law that I do like, which is the republic form of system. We'll get into that here just in a second.
In a state of anarchy, however, everyone has to guard life, liberty, and property, and the lives of family members. Everyone must be armed, and movement is severely restricted because one's property has to be protected at all times. Civilized people have always hired someone to do the guarding, a sheriff, a police force, or some branch of government. Once law enforcement was in place, the people were freer. They could leave their property, work in the fields, and so on. In short, the proper amount of government makes everyone freer. There are some who advocate anarchy.
And isn't that the most key word, proper? And if you can keep it, ma'am, you see how all these things slip away? We slip to total government, we slip to anarchy, but it's so hard to find that balance in the middle. And I'll be the first one to admit it. It's really hard. And I think the only way to get the balance in the middle is to inform people, which is why I'm making this video here.
However, not because they want no government, but because they don't like what they have. They use anarchy as a tool for revolutionary change. The condition of anarchy is very much like a vacuum where something rushes in to fill it. These calculating anarchists work to break down the existing government with rioting, killing, looting, and terrorism. Tragically, the people living in such chaos often go to those best able to put an end to it and beg them to take over and restore order. And who is best able to put an end to the chaos? The very people who started it. The anarchists who created the problem then create a government run by them, an oligarchy, where they have total power. This is exactly what happened in Russia that led to Lenin taking total power, and in Germany where Hitler's brown shirts created the chaos that brought him to power. But anarchy isn't a stable form of government. It's a quick transition from something that exists to something desired by the power-hungry. It's a temporary condition, and because it isn't permanent, we eliminate it as well.
I'm sure I have a lot of friends that would disagree with that because I have a lot of friends that are anarchists or claim to be anarchists. My examples that I could use in my real life is like the whole 20-year war in the Middle East, where we go there, we bomb, we level, and then we hand out government contracts to rebuild. Every time we're rebuilding, we're putting in a fake president, a fake leader, a fake, this is basically the coup that they throw to overthrow the government. And there's a book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins, and great book. It's the one that woke me up. 2004, I read that, maybe 2005. But basically, the book, to boil it all down, is there's 3 stages of war. There's the economic hitman that sits down with a leader of another country to get him to sign loan documents to indebt them into the World Bank system. Like Syria right now doesn't have a World Bank. Iran doesn't have a central bank, and right now they're behind everything, but we need to topple their government and install our own government. So we need to create an anarchist situation there, or a coup. But that's stage 1, is economic hitman sits down with loan documents. The leader says, I'm not going to do that. Stage 2 is overthrow via coup or assassination. You get rid of the person, and then you install your dictator government, which is really just your oligarchy, the people that are going to sign the contracts for the rebuilding for these, Raytheon and whatever companies to make a bunch of money rebuilding the country. So anarchy sounds cool. And if you're in a little remote town with 25 people, super cool. Then people aren't going to be murdering and stealing from each other, and there's a sense of community, very cool. But for 330 million people to live like that, just upping the theft law to $900 creates crazy theft in San Francisco. So as much as I don't like laws and I'm a rebel to them, I understand how the proper amount of government makes everyone freer if you can keep that proper amount. So let's keep going here.
The word democracy comes from 2 Greek words, demos, meaning people, and kratein, meaning to rule. Democracy, therefore, means the rule of the people, majority rule. This, of course, sounds good, but suppose the majority decides to take away one's home, or business, or children. Obviously, there has to be a limit. The flaw in democracy is that the majority isn't restrained. If more than half the people can be persuaded to want something in a democracy, they rule. What about republic? Well, that comes from the Latin, res meaning thing, and publica meaning public.
The public thing, the law. Let me go back to that really quick, the democracy thing, because that's what everybody's talking about. We're going to lose our democracy. Do you want 51% of people to be able to take your right to private property? Or to be able to take your right to free speech, or just to be able to take your gun, or take your whatever, the right to defend yourself, really, whether it's a knife, a rock, a spit, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Why do you want the people to be able to take your things? And that's where law comes in, to protect the rights that you have. Right to jury, Anyways, this is my favorite kind of government, republic. I pledge my allegiance to this country and to the republic for which it stands, and this is why.
It means the public thing, the law. A true republic is one where the government is limited by law, leaving the people alone.
Constitution.
America's founders had a clean slate to write on. They could have set up an oligarchy. In fact, there were some who wanted George Washington to be their king. But the founding fathers knew history, and they chose to give us the rule of law in a republic, not the rule of a majority in a democracy. Why? Let's demonstrate the difference in the setting of the Old West.
The Old West.
Consider a lynch mob in a democracy. 35 horseback riders chase one lone gunman. They catch him, and they vote 35-1 to hang him. Democracy has triumphed, and there's one less gunman to contend with. Now consider the same scenario in a republic. The 35 horseback riders catch the gunman and vote 35-1 to hang him. But the sheriff arrives, and he says, "You can't kill him. He's got his right to a fair trial." So they take the gunman back to town. A jury of his peers is selected, and they hear the evidence and the defense, and they decide if he shall hang. Does the jury even decide by majority rule? No, it has to be unanimous, or he goes free. The rights of the gunman aren't subject to majority rule, but to the law. This is the essence of a republic. Many Americans would be surprised to learn that the word democracy does not appear in the Declaration of Independence or the U.S. Constitution, nor does it appear in any of the constitutions of the 50 states. The founders did everything they could to keep us from having a democracy. James Madison, rightly known as the father of the Constitution, wrote in essay number 10 of the Federalist Papers, "Democracies have ever been spectacles of turbulence and contention, have ever been found incompatible with personal security or the rights of property, and have in general been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths." Alexander Hamilton agreed, and he stated, "We are a republican government. Real liberty is never found in despotism or in the extremes of democracy." Samuel Adams, a signer of the Declaration of Independence, stated, "Democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself." The founders had good reason to look upon democracy with contempt because they knew that the democracies in the early Greek city-states produced some of the wildest excesses of government imaginable. In every case, they ended up with mob rule, then anarchy, and finally tyranny under an oligarchy. During that period in Greece, there was a man named Solon, who urged creation of a fixed body of law not subject to majority whims. But where the Greeks never adopted Solon's wise counsel, the Romans did. Based on what they knew of Solon's laws, they created the 12 tables of the Roman law and, in effect, built a republic that limited government power and left the people alone. Since government was limited, the people were free to produce, with the understanding that they could keep the fruits of their labor. In time, Rome became wealthy and the envy of the world. In the midst of plenty, however, the Roman people forgot what freedom entailed. They forgot that the essence of freedom is the proper limitation of government. When government power grows, people freedom recedes. Once the Romans dropped their guard, power-seeking politicians began to exceed the powers granted them in the Roman Constitution. Some learned that they could elect politicians who would use government power to take property from some and give it to others. Agriculture subsidies were introduced, followed by housing and welfare programs. Inevitably, taxes rose and controls over the private sector were imposed. Soon, a number of Rome's producers could no longer make ends meet, and they went on the dole. Productivity declined, shortages developed, and mobs began roaming the streets, demanding bread and circuses from the government. Many were induced to trade freedom for security. Eventually, the whole system came crashing down. They went from a republic to a democracy and ended up with an oligarchy under a progression of the Caesars. Thus, democracy itself is not a stable form of government. Instead, it is the gradual transition from limited government to the unlimited rule of an oligarchy.
I think that's
Knowing
where we're
this,
at right now.
we as Americans are ultimately left with only two choices. We can keep our republic, as Franklin put it, or we will inevitably end up with an oligarchy, a tyranny of the elite.
So now that you know that, it's pretty interesting, right? They say constantly to you that we're losing our democracy, that you want a democracy. Democracy is the best somehow. But now that you understand the dangers of a democracy, you should be advocating for a republic at this point. Or you like an oligarchy because you rule the world. Hopefully you don't. Hopefully you're not watching my video because I don't want you to know who I am. But I think that this is one of the most interesting videos out there about Americanism and about the roles of government. I always ask people this, like online in chats, like, what is your favorite role of government? You know, people say this a lot about capitalism too. We can make a whole other video about that. But capitalism is so bad. And I'm like, what do you replace it with? And they don't have an answer because there really isn't another system that I know of. Please enlighten me. But back to this point, I think Americans understanding that we want a republic, one set of laws that reduce the involvement of government in our life, and one set of laws that ensure our freedom, that's the check and balance that makes America such a great country. So I'll leave it with you there. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you've learned something. Please share this with anybody that you know that's like, you know, a statist, a Democrat-loving person just somebody who needs information. This is a welcoming community full of information. We're all just trying to learn. We make mistakes. Sometimes we don't know, and then we learn and we improve from our mistakes that we've made. So definitely do share this video with a lot of people. I know I share this original video with tons of people all the time, so I'm going to be sharing my video with people, because I think this is probably one of the top 5 videos that Americans, I said 10 earlier, but probably even in the top 5. This is an amazing video. And I'm going to make a series on the other videos that I think people should watch too. So if you do want to subscribe and check those out at a later date, please do. Thank you guys for watching so much. And I do appreciate your support. Give a subscribe, thumbs up, something like that. Let the algorithm know what's up. You know the deal. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.